The house sat alone at the edge of town, lit by golden windows and a tasteful porch lantern. It belonged to the Hawthorns. They were the kind of family people named buildings after. Wealthy. Well-liked. Hell, I actually used to be friends with one of their kids back during grade school. Unfortunately, life for me didn't go as swimmingly. And although I'd never broken into a home that I'd once been invited to, jobs around Renfield were fleeting, and I needed a bigger score than usual to carry me out of this town. It's not my fault, no. The Hawthorns, they were the ones who basically killed Renfield. They had stock in every business that started here. Tech startups, green energy projects, hell, even the damn syrup bottling plant. They were globally recognized before their stupid divorce, and the disappearance of Mrs. Hawthorne shortly after. Now, it's easy to assume that was Mr. Hawthorne's doing, but she was just one of the 17 who went missing that month. 16 of them had no ties to that man at all, so he took his kids and left, and business followed him. And what little industry had taken root here dried up and blew away, just like everything else. The most stable job now is the dollar store. It's a great, quiet place for hunting cabins, but those of us who live here have a 45 commute to stock shelves at Walmart. So, yeah, the Hawthorns can suck a fat one. But you already know the upside. They hardly ever visit their old home. Maybe a few days, every couple of months. And it's only ever Mr. Hawthorne. Outside of that, the house is patrolled by 2 security guards, which used to worry me. But it's clear that they're not actually doing full sweeps. Just 2 lazy men with sidearms who get paid to lounge in a mansion and look intimidating. I mean, who would break into a house with security vehicles parked out front, right? Well, when you watch the place for half a year, you notice things. 7 out of the 8 security cameras have red lights. 3 of those have ivy or spider webs obscuring their lenses. The same porch light has been flickering since February. The back patio entrance? Basic PIN number lock. Child's play. But what really caught my eye? What really lingered? Were the windows. The east side of the basement had 2 narrow rectangular windows just above ground level. Not only were they locked, but they were nailed shut. Thick, black iron nails that were sunk into the brick. And those same 2 windows? Well, the room behind them lit up only twice in 6 months. Both times when Mr. Hawthorne was in town. The room containing the only thing valuable enough for the pompous billionaire prick to come back to town. 2 weeks ago, there were no lights, no guards awake, and no Hawthorns. So I made my decision. I rounded through the woods in a wide arc to reach a small hole that I'd cut into the fence a few months ago, hidden behind a few overgrown bushes. The grass was damp, but the air was still. I crept along the perimeter until I reached the blind spot in one of the security cameras without a red light, just in case it still had power. From there was only a few careful shuffles to the left before I ducked under the patio. I knelt in the shadows, and I planted my Wi-Fi jammer, and flicked it on, turned on the frequency. It wouldn't reach the cameras in the front, but it would be enough to scramble the feeds and alerts that are tied to the back exits, the ones that I've been chasing for months. A tight escape net if things went wrong. I chose the sliding glass patio door over the garage side entrance. Both were near the staircases, but this one led to the kitchen and living room, then the basement door beyond that. The garage entrance was connected too closely to the bedrooms. I figured if the guards were still awake, they'd be planted on couches somewhere, nodding off to late-night TV. But the house was dark, dead quiet. No action in the living room through the windows, so it was best to prioritize steering clear of the steps by the bedrooms. The lock gave with barely even a whisper. 30 seconds, maybe less. I slipped inside and eased the door shut, and I clicked the lock back behind me. The kitchen smelled like dust and stale coffee. My steps were slow, controlled, sliding forward on the balls of my feet. Every creak in the old wooden floor felt too loud in that silence. Past the marble island and the spotless stovetop, through the archway and into the living room, there was a long table, high-backed chairs, and no signs of life. And then I turned. A narrow doorway just off to the side, tucked between two built-in cabinetry. I opened it, and the air that wafted up from below was cold and dry, with a strange coppery edge. I stepped through the door, and I shut it behind me. The stairs groaned more than I expected. I froze, waited, counted to 20, but there was nothing. So I descended. The basement smelled different. Not like mildew or old laundry. It was sterile. Bleach. But strangely, it looked the same as it had when I was a second grader coming over for birthday parties. I stepped into the main entrance space, with two large rectangular rooms joined in an L shape. Aside from the stairs behind me, if I followed the wall all the way to my back to the left, I'd reach the hallway that led to the second staircase at a full bathroom. The door I wanted, the one that led to the room with the nailed windows, sat dead center on the wall that ran alongside that hallway. Only about 25 feet from where I stood currently. Close enough to the stairs, close enough to my exit. The same way I came in. Unfortunately, that meant that it was in full view of anyone coming down the other staircase. If someone entered from that end, my only chance would be to dive behind the big leather recliner in the far corner, where a cluster of fake plants and a side table offered some cover. I made a mental note of the escape route and the hiding spot, and then I crept towards the thick, dark oak door. The lock was trickier than I expected. 45 seconds of quiet work before I got the pins to fall. Bingo, I muttered. The door creaked as I eased it open, but I didn't stop when it was wide enough to slip through. I pushed it further than I needed to. Maybe too far. Maybe that was my mistake. A better thief wouldn't have hesitated. Since that night, I haven't opened a door all the way, not even halfway. I don't think I ever will again. As the angle neared 90 degrees, something gritty scraped beneath the door. A faint drag, like grains of sand or salt. And then I heard it. Footsteps. Bare feet slapping against tile, and softer on carpet. It was the second staircase, and someone was coming down. I shut the doors gently as I could and sprinted on the balls of my feet, ducking behind the recliner and crouching low before the fake ferns and the dusty side table. And I held my breath. A burly man flicked on the stairwell light. He muttered over his shoulder to someone that I couldn't see, clearly the other guard. It was probably nothing, man. The dust triggers this shit all the time. Just check the kitchen. Laser system. You have got to be fucking kidding me. I didn't understand why it was necessary yet. But I would. Very soon. The man trudged down the hall. Thankfully, too lazy or groggy to flip on any more lights. The only lit one was the stairwell, casting his silhouette deep into the room. His shadow reached the floor just a few feet away from my hiding spot. And then he stopped. He was barefoot and wearing sleeping attire. The only thing that marked him as a guard was the sidearm at his waist. He scrunched his toes in the carpet and bent down, brow furrowed, picking something up. A speck. A grain. The barrier, he muttered. The words barely made it out. Half gasped and half whispered. My gut twisted. He was about to figure it out, that someone had disturbed whatever the hell that gritty stuff was. Salt, sand, rice, maybe. He straightened slowly, put his ear to the door, left his hand on the knob. His right unclipped the holster at his hip. You fucking idiot! I blamed myself. I forgot to relock the door, and it was going to raise all of his alarms.
My self-loathing swelled, even as the rational part of me reasoned that there hadn't been time to lock it. But it didn't matter. He'd know. He'd opened it, and I'd be...
The center of the oak door exploded inwards, a shriek of splintered wood and ragged force. And then two long, bone-thin arms burst through, gray with decay and slick with sinew. It molted with sores that wept, pus, and rot. Fingers that snapped like branches lashed out, tipped with yellow nails and crusted in dirt and old blood. The guard didn't even scream. His breath was caught in his throat. And the thing's knuckles, they clamped around his waist, not his chest, not his legs, but his waist, like it meant to fold him in half. And then it did. A sickening snap echoed through the room as his spine was bent backwards. He didn't even cry out. His eyes locked with mine across the room, wide and horrified, searching for something, for help. He was sputtering out blood and gawking, but the arms just continued to pull. It yanked him by his ruined waist into the splintered hole, forcing him through like a toddler jamming the square block into the round hole of a toy. The jagged wood peeled him as he went, his face dragging against the splinters, his ankles twitching and twisting beneath his head, desperate to follow the rest of him through. And then, a wet thud as he hit the floor on the other side. Silence. And then, the door creaked open, and it stepped out, shambling, tall, hunched. Its limbs were way too long, not inhuman in design, but wrong in proportion. Its spine pushed against the skin of its back like something trying to emerge. The hair on its scalp hung in greasy and stringy mats, the kind that looked like it would all come off in one slick swipe. And then I saw its face, at least what was left of it. A slack, dangling jaw crowded with teeth, some animal, some jagged, and some that looked too familiar. Human. But what hit me the hardest wasn't the teeth. It was the bracelet. Delicate silver links with a small amber stone, the kind a kid remembers because it looks like something no one else's mom would have ever wore, paired with a ring that I hadn't seen since I was 8. A massive diamond, the most expensive thing that I'd ever laid my eyes on back then. Mrs. Hawthorne. She was scanning the room. The Hawthorne thing nearly locked eyes with me. Her gaze drifted slow and dragging, pupils wide and black, shallowing what should have been her irises. Those empty eyes crept closer to my hiding spot, like she could feel me, sense me. Could she smell the piss running down my leg? And then, a yelp from the stairs. It was the other guard. Her head snapped towards the sound like a twitch so fast that it barely even registered. Less like turning and more like a glitch. He was gone around the corner, running. I heard him throw down stools in the kitchen to cover his escape. And then she was off. She bolted for the stairs, slamming into the walls as she went. The sound of her sprint. No, it was something much faster than that. It rattled the floorboards, inconceivably fast. And then came the tearing. A wet, violent splash against the glass, shattering, and then finally, the alarm. I gave it about a minute. The
police station was in the center of town, and I wasn't about to be the next body bag just because I didn't want to bump into the cops. When I finally moved, I tightened the strings on my hoodie and I sprinted out the front door. No way in hell was I cutting through the woods, not with Mrs. Hawthorne somewhere out there. 4 minutes later, lungs burning, and I heard the sirens. As they rounded the corner, I dove into a ditch and I held my breath while the cruisers roared past. By the time that I made it back to my car, parked behind the old bolting factory, I spotted police units from the next town over tearing through the main road. The house burnt down by the end of the week. To be honest, I don't know what the police know, but they're definitely not telling the town the truth. 2 young girls went missing that Thursday. The last time they were spotted was at the swing set behind the elementary school. On Saturday, they found an abandoned car by the observatory park, near the edge of town. Blood on the dash, signs of a struggle. There's still a few people who haven't officially been reported missing, but their families are posting, asking if anyone's heard of them recently. During one of the search parties, a sheriff never came back. He simply just didn't return. And in the last 7 days, judging by Facebook posts, 11 pets have completely vanished. Dogs, cats, even a parrot. I want to leave. Every instinct that I have is screaming at me to run. But they've issued a stay-at-home order. So now I'm stuck here. What the fuck do I do?